Hi, that's Milton Kane, the Christian Democratic Party candidate for the federal seat of Newcastle. Today we hear about the fact that this new Rudd government, which is the same government, just a different leader, is now going to cut back on higher education places, it seems. Well, we do know that under the Gonski funding scheme, they were going to rip money out of higher education to fund this program. So it seems that perhaps the way that they're going to rip it out is to cut down on the people that go to university and TAFE colleges. I wonder how intelligent this is. You see, one of the important things is that if a person has higher education, there's a reasonable prospect that they will be able to be sufficiently qualified for many of the jobs today. So many employers require a higher standard of education than there has been in the past. Now, the problem that we have is when we cut down on the funding to these positions, then what it means that these people who were planning to go into those careers relating to the higher education programs will not be able to go there. It seems to me that if you're going to lift the standard of education in the schools by a Gonski program, which by the way is substantially unfunded, and also we don't know exactly what's going to happen, it really is a matter of, in my view, a control of the federal government into an area of state administration, that is the delivery of school services. If it was just a funding program, it would be okay, I guess, to some extent, except you shouldn't be taking money from one sector of the education to another. The big question is obviously who will miss out on these higher education places. We have many requests around the country about extensions of people needing education. They want to extend into certain areas. For example, we have the country doctors and nurses wanting education facilities in the country areas, so that the doctors will in fact do their training in the country area and probably stay there, because the attraction of being in the city for the period of time to do a medical degree and the associated accreditation and training after the education program means that a doctor will be spending something like 6 to 8 years in the city, and therefore he would well and truly perhaps establish a family. If of course the education was out in other areas, there's a reasonable prospect that the person would set up a home in a country town and probably stay there. This is the decision of these doctors, what they believe is to be appropriate, and it does have some wisdom in it. Now, if we're going to pull the money out of the education, are programs like this going to suffer? What are we going to do? You see, one of the problems is that we need to make sure that we have enough money for these programs, and we need to work on what we're doing in other areas. It seems that we're running around in the current administration without a direction. We have programs which were in the early days of this administration, which are now being changed and altered, going in almost a completely different direction. Higher education is very important. And I know of some people who have suffered at the hands of the New South Wales cuts to higher education. And if we have on top of that federal cuts to higher education, we'll find more people suffering. Unfortunately, it's usually the people who are most disadvantaged that suffer the worst in these circumstances. And these are the people that the Christian Democratic Party say that we should care for. After all, we are encouraged in the Bible to help those who are most disadvantaged, to help those who really don't have many choices left. They're the ones we're to help. And it seems that what the government is doing is deserting these most needy people. Now, sure, we do not want to have a dependency society. We want to have a society where we assist people to their degree of independence that they're capable of. But to do that, what we actually have to do is to achieve a good and wholesome outcome for the rest of the program. We have serious concerns about the direction that the government wants to go. I think on one hand, the government doesn't even really know what it wants to do, which is sad in itself. But we do need to make sure that people who have commenced a course, and the course which they commence, because of the choices that people make in year 10 and following, the subjects which they continue in are really putting them onto a pathway of a group of possible career choices. And if we pull out funding today, that's going to affect the people in year 9 as they consider what they're going to do in the future. Those people who have already made those choices, who are currently in year 10, 11 and 12, those people may find themselves in a position where they have chosen subjects in an area where there's going to be uncertainty in the funding of those courses. Stable government is about certainty for the people. The success of the Gillard government was said by how many pieces of legislation was passed. Well, really, that's not really success. It doesn't matter how many bills are passed. It's how many people's lives have been improved because of the administration of government. You see, the criteria that often is taken is a statistical data which is not relevant to life. But we need to make sure that administration of government is about assisting people to produce the best that they can, to produce the best outcome they can. And I do not know how this is going to be achieved by ripping money out of higher education. Perhaps there is greater amounts going to be ripped out than what has been foreshadowed under Gonski. That I don't know. I do know that the new Prime Minister, or the recycled Prime Minister more precisely, has endorsed the direction of Gonski. And I mean, we always have serious concerns about when a federal government seeks to wrestle control of a state government position, of a state government area of service. You see, our constitution is such that the federal government should be invited by the state governments to take on more responsibility if the state government deems that it to be appropriate, that the federal government can better manage it. It should not be the federal government trying to usurp the authority of the state governments. And with this funding, I suppose with that also will come the government wanting to become more involved The big problem we have is we have members of Parliament who do not know the limitation that the Constitution requires them to act within. And it's about time they learned it. They need to learn it well. Our Constitution, in my opinion, is a very good and strong and wholesome Constitution. It is a balance of states' rights over federal rights. It gives the people of Australia the opportunity to balance their dreams, their aspirations, and their political choices to what they believe is the best direction the country should go. And I think that there are people afoot who wish to change the Constitution drastically. And what they're trying to do is to drive a wedge between the people and their Constitution. By having arrangements, by having deals being struck where there becomes confusion about whether it's a state's right or a federal right. We need to get these matters squared away. We need to be involved in teaching in our school systems the value of our Constitution, how it functions and how the various state constitutions work, and the balance of it all, and how they fit together. There are those who want to have just a federal government, and it can look good. But you see, the checks and balances in the wisdom that we have is there for a purpose. Our Constitution puts checks and balances there in place. There is an area of activity of the federal government in regard to higher education. There is also the responsibility of the state. And those boundaries are clear. But when we start fiddling with money one way or the other, and then we're trying to get commitments, you want more money, you have to comply with this, then we start the road of undermining states' rights. And we see a grab for power by the feds. I'm a federal candidate. I strongly believe in the National Parliament. But I also am a person who believes in making sure the boundaries which are there, I do not usurp. That is the most important aspect involved in government, is to know where the boundary is and to stay within it. I hope and pray that people who want to have a career which is based upon higher education will not be adversely affected by the decision being made, because there are others out there. There are other candidates who want to see higher education fully funded, who want to see people be able to have a pathway to higher education, to be able to get those jobs which are important. Whether those jobs be through higher education of the TAFE system, or whether it be higher education through a university course or degree. We want people to be able to do that. The Christian Democratic Party has your welfare, your best welfare, at its heart. Think long and hard, because the choices are becoming more clearer day by day. Thank you.